Welcome to Scorched Earth and a generalised overview for the energies of the season. Now, this is the first one of these that I've done, and so probably, in all likelihood, as we progress, I'm going to refine and hone exactly what this is about. But I wanted to look into the energy flow, right? So we're looking at Capricorn season here. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with very Capricornian themes, but we're situating it where we are right now. So this is designed to be a companion to the signs overviews for the same period. So I have absolutely no idea how this is going to go. I have no idea what this is going to look like when we've done it, but it does feel to me much more useful in terms of understanding the energy flows as we are in it right now. So with that said, I'm going to flip this camera over here. We're using the Hexen 2 Tarot. I don't know if any of you have seen this before. People in my private community will be well familiar with this deck now because I've been using it all year for Energies of the Week's readings. It's extraordinary. And I think when it comes to collective overviews, it does really, really well. So we're going to be pulling some cards from this. Like I said, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know how this is going to, the shape of this. But we're going to pull some cards and we're just going to talk around the upcoming Capricorn season and what it means for us, how it might express, what we need to lean into, those kinds of things. And then, as usual, the signs individual readings and extended readings will flow from that. I think we're also probably going to take an oracle card from this liminal forest deck because I just am so in love with it. I love it so much. In fact, let's do that first. So we're looking at the energies of this season for Capricorn. That's running from 21st, 22nd of December right through, right, crossing the bridge of the year almost into 2026. So let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Treasure. Interesting. Right. Let's pull out the rest of the cards. We'll stick that there up in the corner and we'll see what this is about. So I'm going to shuffle in the same way as I have just done there. And 1. So let's have a look. Energies of the season, 2 of Wands. I mean, 100%. And the funny thing is, it doesn't feel like we normally talk about the 2 of Wands in terms of a crossroads, but it feels more like a doorway here for everyone. We've got the Page of Wands, we've got the Strength card, we've got the Knight of Wands, woo-wee, we've got the 8 of Cups, and we've got the 7 of Wands. That's a lot of fire in here. But I mean, that's very much in keeping with the energies of the season. The thing is, where does the Capricorn energy flow in? Well, the energies of the season, I feel, are being well summed up by this, because what we've got is the precursor to the incredible fire energy that is happening in 2026. Really not that far away now. So we have creativity, we have passion, we have hopefully informed response, and we have a lot of action. I think I don't want to go into a post-mortem of 2025. I might save that for another video, right? But certainly the first part of the year was very, very slow, and as we moved into the second part of the year, everything felt like it was starting to pick up speed. I've heard this described by a Chinese astrologer as the ignition phase, where 2026 is the explosion phase, right? But when we're talking about, all of this very fiery energy, which, speaking as a Leo, so fixed fire, I think requires a little bit of control. Capricorn is about self-discipline. It's about maturity. It's quite often about setting goals. Long-term goals. I don't think that setting long-term goals is something that is going to see its normal fruition during this time, though. So the question becomes, where can we really lean into that self-discipline and mastery that Capricorn represents? Like, where is the structure? I think that's the way that I put it. How do we work with the structure? Well, there's the Ten of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, followed by the Chariot, and I feel like almost these two cards answer that question right there. Right, the Ten of Pentacles is a card of structure. It's, intimately related to structure and security and stability and all of those kinds of things. And the card that follows is the Chariot. Now, the Chariot is all about the self, self-awareness, self-discipline, self-motivation. We've talked about this for 6.5 years. The Chariot is a card of determination. It is a card of balance and equilibrium. Those two things are very important. And it is a card, to some extent, of success, although it doesn't necessarily imply that success is achieved there in that moment, right? It's creating the perfect foundation for success to become more probable than not, because our Chariot's not in any danger of tipping over, right? It becomes a card, when you really dig into it, of the kind of internal realignment that needs to happen, or any kind of internal alignment, actually, that comes from knowing self really, really deeply. It's about the balancing of internal polarities, but it's also about embracing the shadow. For me, the Chariot card is a deep card of shadow work. And what is the benefit of that? Well, when one's shadow is integrated, not only are you pulling in those bits of yourself that you have cast out, thus leading to an experience of wholeness, which is an essential component of success and authenticity and all those kinds of things. But we also give ourselves an opportunity to reassess the gold in our shadow, because we tend to chuck that out with the things that we consider as bad. Now, the wholeness is the key to everything. These two cards here together are speaking deeply to the idea that it is an internal stability and an internal security that we are looking for, rather than an external one, because everything begins to change very, very quickly. The Capricorn season, like I said, does cross the doorway of the year, but I feel like Capricorn season offers us, in and of itself, an opportunity to walk through a doorway that perhaps we may not have perceived up until this point. You will notice that we have fire, 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 fire. In fact, the only one of these cards on the table that is not associated with fire is the Eight of Cups. And there's something really profound about that. As I've been talking to people in the community about through the weekly readings and other videos that I've made, we went through a massive purge in Scorpio season. Huge. And some of us got ambushed by it in a way that we weren't expecting to, right? I'm definitely one of those people. But then in Sagittarius season, it was kind of like, well, if everything that was our own internal bullshit is now gone, what remains must be something considerably closer to the truth than we've been working to before. And for some of us, that's felt quite improbable, because there are things that had needed to be embraced that we really did not think were for the likes of us, right? We're kind of going back to the energies of these cards here. Integration, wholeness, completion, right? Balancing of internal polarities and all of that sort of thing. And in that moment of truth, in Sagittarius season, where the truth is more important than anything, and it becomes the motivation, right? The point of the initiating point, or maybe even the ignition point, right? Of a personal expansion, which we're also seeing here referred to in the Strength card. Holding an entirely different view of what reality is and what it could be, which I find to be absolutely fascinating, because Capricorn season, like I said, is about starting to put everything in the right place, so we create an internal structure, an internal order that will see us through whatever comes. It is the doorway that we're walking through. Now, this Eight of Cups, to kind of come back to what I was saying here, is truly leaving behind that which no longer serves us, truly leaving behind all of the emotional baggage that stopped us seeing what our true potential could be, why we're here, what the point of us is, what is our purpose, what are our superpowers, all of these kind of questions, which I get on a regular basis, and I've been fielding on a regular basis for fucking years. It's not about bringing anything new into the equation, not yet, not at this point. It's about allowing yourself to slough off anything that took you away from the truth. That to me feels like a very Sagittarian position right there. And I mean, when you start leaning into the idea that Sagittarius itself is about, has the centaur as its symbol, and is related very closely to Chiron, right? The idea, the archetype of the wounded healer. There's a sense of what we have been through ourselves now becoming the way in which we can help other people moving forwards, because we're doing it from a place of internal solidity, and possibly to an extent in a way that we've never really perceived in ourselves before. Like I said, leaving behind what is not true in favour of what remains that apparently is true. And now we can start building from that place, right? We can bring the fire, but we can also bring that Capricornian maturity, that Capricornian longevity, right? We're taking the long view on a lot of things, but the long view isn't, I want to achieve this job title by this point. It's not even the Capricornian 5-year plan. I'm going to do this and this and this, and I need to be earning this much by this point, and I want to have paid off half of my mortgage by here, there, and yet, right? Kind of very resource oriented. It's much more about how can I embody these principles so no matter what shows up outside, I can field it. Whether I jump over it, whether I jump up the mountain out of the way, it's that resilience of the goat here that I think is it's giving us a basis on which to work, right? A basis on which to be endlessly fucking creative. But don't think for a second that there isn't, themes of bravery running right the way through this. Just, was it Orwell who said, telling the truth in a time of deceit is an act of rebellion, or something like that, right? I think it's more profound than that for us. In Capricorn season, it's like to refuse to be confused is an act of rebellion. To refuse to be washed away in a turbulent sea of confusion and delusion is an act of rebellion. At this point, even sort of knowing who you are, what you stand for, because we've purged away so much of what was patently false, frankly, in terms of the way that we saw ourselves. There's something monumental about that, So I've got this time tarot here. I fucking love this. If you've not come across it before, it's an indie deck by Eugene Vinitsky and Elsa Kaparnukovsky. It's absolutely outstanding, and it I don't know, just seems to be really nailing everything. So let's look at this Two of Wands. Let's have a think about what this doorway that is being offered to us, what it's about. Wheel of Fortune. Well, touche. There's a big energy straight out of the deck. Right. Oh, and the Queen of Cups. Oh, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because it represents the sign of Cancer, which is your opposite sign on the zodiac. Oh, not yours, because we're all looking at Cancer season here, right? It is the opposite sign to Capricorn. And I think that it's really interesting that it's showing up sideways, because it says it's less about what we feel at the moment. And it's almost more about what our intuition is telling us. But I feel like with this backdrop of kind of like, we know ourselves, we know where the stability is, we know where the structure is, and it is entirely internal, it's not external. It's almost like emotions are clouding things for people. The great part of the Wheel of Fortune is that it is in a state of constant revolution, which is to say turning, right? And sometimes it feels like fortunes are, dropping, and sometimes they're on the upward swing of the wheel, and that feels great. But then logically, what we can say about this card is it is pointing to the fact that everything is changing. Everything is always changing in reality, but everything is changing. And there's a sense that those who have taken the time to get to know themselves, to have matured, to have brought in this kind of internal security for oneself, are the ones who get the option of walking through the doorway or not. Now, you could call it a portal, you could call it a tunnel, you could call it anything you like, right? But it's that sense of, do we want to be swept along by the masses, or do we want to be part of what helps guide the masses? This is not, interestingly, an emotional situation. In fact, a lot of what is emotional has been actually holding us back, right? In all likelihood, what has been emotional has been an expression of ego, and particularly where we have, been dealing with themes of not being enough and not wanting to be seen, and insecurities and emotional repression, or whatever form it's taken. These have all been protective mechanisms of a damaged ego. And there's a sense that for a lot of people, we have moved beyond that. We are in a different place now. The treasure card seems to make all kinds of sense now, because it feels like an acceptance of the gold in the shadow. Without perceiving one's own treasure, one does not have the opportunity to go out there into the world and do good. Do good, real good this year. It has to come from a place of worth, because the point of us as teachers, as leaders, as guides, and I have spoken to you all about this non-fucking stop for, what is it 2 years now? I can't even remember. I can't remember if I first brought this up in 2023 or whether it was in 2024, but we've been preparing. And the only thing here now is to walk through, not propelled along by emotion, but a matter of fact, straightforward acceptance of fact. And walking through the doorway, as we all will do in Capricorn season here, we're starting a journey that is not only going to see our growth individually, but hopefully our collective growth too, because here on the strength card, the networked revolution, the kind of characteristics that are displayed by people who really know themselves are strength, bravery, courage, grace, acceptance, a willingness to hear other people's side, a willingness to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. It's modelling through action is what it is. Now, we don't know where this path will take us. In all likelihood, there's going to be lots of twists and turns along the way. But a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. And to be brave enough in the first place to take that single step, and that single step is, I accept Whatever it is that the universe has got planned for me, I accept it and I embody all the bits of myself. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Whatever it is, it's all part of me, and it's all part of a coherent and very unique picture of my soul. Here is where our influence lies. It's in showing up authentically. Now, quite regardless of anything that you may do in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, it's almost like that Capricornian acceptance of, here are my resources. Here are my internal resources. And everything that I do is going to be built on the foundation of what this stands for in here. It cannot help but influence other people. It cannot help but inspire other people. And I think there's something so powerful in that. You know, we've got this Empress card at the bottom of the deck here. It's the archetypal mother, but for me, it's an energy of gratitude and abundance. It's that sense of feeling rich, enriched. And when that feeling is embodied internally, there is nothing that can take that away from you. Whatever twists and turns, whatever challenges up ahead, it's like, well, no, that is a consistent script. It's almost like it's completely obliterated what lay there before. I'm just staring at this eclipse here, and this eclipse feels incredibly potent. I mean, again, we've got the idea of a portal, of something to walk through here, right? But it's like as the sky darkens, the willingness to lean into what is internally true, internally strong, internally matured, and say, okay, whatever comes, I can deal with this because I have the resources to do so. It makes all of these twists and turns ahead feel different. It's almost like it's imbued with a responsibility, and maybe this is coming from the feeling of modelling what authenticity and sovereignty look like. And Capricorn themselves isn't, represent an energy of autonomy and sovereignty. What is modeled, what you are accepting in modelling for the rest of the collective in your own life right now is what we hope spreads like a mimetic idea, right? Infecting people with bravery, and then looking at you and saying, well, you can do that. Maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can say yes to something that I've been saying no to for a long time. Maybe I can say no to something that I've been saying yes to for a long time, whether consciously or, by apathy and lack of engagement, perhaps. If you're watching this video, in all likelihood, you are part of, what even would we call it? So I'll come back to that same phrase again, the teachers, the leaders, the guides. Because what starts off as a doorway, what starts off as the single step to cover the 1,000 miles, right, or to start the journey of 1,000 miles, moves very rapidly over Capricorn season. Maybe this is from day one, 1st of January, we are straight in the energy of fire. Because we have the Knight of Wands right here. Now the energy of the Knight of Wands is highly responsive. It's deeply intuitive. It can turn on a sixpence. It's adaptable. It's resilient. It's flexible. Now, I think the best way to be a model of that kind of energy as we move into the very fiery year of 2026 is with the foundational energy of self-knowledge, maturity, responsibility, stability inside. The Knight of Wands is criticised often for being an erratic energy. But I feel like that kind of unpredictability that the Knight of Wands represents is only really problematic in a rigid societal context, right? What do I mean by that? Well, I remember reading studies that they had done of, and it was particularly boys who were disruptive in the classroom setting. And the end result of it was, without exception, every child, and usually a boy, who was disruptive in a classroom setting, when you put them outside, they become leaders, naturally. They're initiating what the group is doing. We're going to climb this tree, we're going to climb over this wall, we're going to run around, we're going to do all of these things. So much is dependent on the situation that surrounds it, you know. And we've moved from an age of earth, we are now in an age of air. The kind of certainty that earth brings is now beginning to depart from the chat. The only certainty that we can rely on being in here. And it feels a little bit like those of us who were, disruptive, or found it very difficult to get in alignment with that more rigid, structural, whatever it is, of life, are now being picked up out of the classroom and put outside, where we can be leaders and teachers and guides, where we can encourage others to take, teach others that it is okay to move from a place of safety. It is okay to get out of your comfort zone. Why? Because we're doing it. We've done it our entire lives, right? But we're kind of here with a level of responsibility now, saying, I get it, I understand, everything that I need is in here, all the resources that I need are in here. And now can bend and flex and not break, right? That's Knight of Wands. It's interesting. We've got the Three of Swords, Sun in Libra, crossed by the Queen of Swords. Now, for me, the Queens help us understand, right? She deeply understands. But in her way, she too is kind of looking for a sort of certainty, right? She's always looking for the truth of the matter. Now, these are two cards that in their own ways both deal with truths. The Three of Swords is that unpleasant popping of the emotional bubble that liberates us from certain misapprehensions that we had about how the world actually works, right? It's like, oh, surprise, you thought you were in a loving relationship. Not so. Surprise, you thought your government loved you. Not so. Surprise, you thought these are, these structures that had been around you forever, for your entire life, would continue on in that way. And it's like, no. It gets us closer to the truth each time, but is there a revelation of a more comprehensible truth in its stead? The Queen of Swords says no. It is unlikely that this will be a year where we understand, where we can ascertain truth in any kind of cerebral way. It's very intuitive. It's paying attention to the gut. I'm going to go this way. No, I'm going to go this way. And why? Because you're carrying your resources around with you. You're carrying your stability around with you. whatever twists and turns, however the boat gets rocked this year, it's not affecting anything at this. But should we expect to understand any of it? Absolutely not. We have to adapt in the face of what we do not understand. It's something that, likely would be quite uncomfortable for most. But the resilience that Capricorn season offers us in that moment of dealing objectively with the facts of the matter, not being led by the nose by our emotions, because as we've understood, these are on their way out now. A certain version of reality that is essentially constructed from damaged ego stuff, blown away, gone, not part of the dialogue anymore. Is it likely, therefore, that there's something kind of instinctive that's coming up to the surface? I would say yes. And what's interesting is that foundation that we have all been working on, right? The Capricorn's looking around and saying, well, what are the resources that we have at our disposal? And recognizing them for what they are and saying, okay, well, I have my health, I have my mindset, I have my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health. Those are the only things that I need. Whatever rips loose from this point on, just like the mountain just like the goat going up the mountainside, this sheer cliff face, there's a trust that we can do the same. And what's really fascinating about that is, with all of this originating stuff down here, it is ultimately a trust in self that is coming up to the surface. The one thing that I think is probably essential. Because if you trust yourself, if you have an intuition, if you have an instinct, you will follow it. This is not a time for overthinking anything, because if we accept, the initial proposition that don't expect to fucking understand a single thing that happens this year, and that's okay. We don't need to. It's not what the energy of the year is about. Can we act with the courage of our convictions at the point where our instincts and our integrity, which I think is something that is important to the energy of Capricorn, and our intuition, when it says move, when it says pivot, when it says duck, can we do that thing without questioning it? I think we can. Seven of Wands is Mars and Leo. It's often associated with a defensive or guarded energy, and what's interesting is, with everything that we've talked about so far, with this kind of internal security, internal stability going on, there is no need to be defensive. There is no need to be guarded. Those energies come to the fore when we suspect that there may be something that we need to fight. And more than that there's something that we need to fight, and there is the possibility that we will lose. This is something entirely different. It's about courage of one's convictions. Because if you know there is nothing that can rock the shit of your internal stability, then why the fuck would you be on high threat, high guard, it's fine. I trust myself. I know whatever comes along, I'll deal with it. Why? Because I've dealt with everything. Got 100% hit rate of surviving all of the worst days of my life so far. How could I not deal with whatever comes along? When we talk about personal growth, it's not about making our problems disappear, and sometimes people misunderstand that fact. What it is about making us so much bigger that those problems are perceived as exactly what they are, which is simply just a series of challenges or problems to be worked through. It's fine. There's no attack on our identity because we know what our identity is. There's no attack on our worth because, well, we know what our worth is. We know that we are capable, efficient, and frankly intelligent human beings who are pretty fucking good at solving problems. Energy is very much of Capricorn. Tell me about the Seven of Wands. Ooh. And you see, well, this is fucking fascinating. It's fascinating because the High Priestess always straddles the liminal. She is a representation of liminal space. She, represents what exists between the end and the beginning. It's beautifully depicted in this deck right here. But here we have an openness to truth too. I mean, what this is saying is, for those of you for whom this reading resonates, and it's not going to be for everyone, what you are, the truth of what you are, the truth of what you stand for, the truth of your own stability, security, and all the resources that you have at your disposal, these are all internal. To some extent, they cannot be seen by other people, but they are a rock for you to lean on during this time. It is the rock on which everything else is built, in fact. But I love this idea, and it is an idea, I think, that is baked into the High Priestess of there being space around you. The High Priestess requires space to work. She is a conduit. She brings through truth. But there's a kind of internal stillness that needs to be happening for her to be able to do her job. There's an interesting message of the truth not being predicated on our need to understand it, for it to be our guiding light moving forwards. It takes a very strong personality to be able to do that, to hold the tension of, our chimp brains that must understand all things all the time. That are also looking for certainty and predictability and all those kind of things, and say, no, I can hold this state. I can be a conduit. I can follow a truth even though I don't understand it. And I can let it begin to shape my idea of what the world actually is and my part in it. I think Capricorn season offers us the ability to lean into a different kind of understanding of what it is to be of service to the collective. It's about getting comfortable with the weight of responsibility that comes with that. And I don't feel like you hold it like a weight. I don't feel like we hold it like a weight. I feel like we hold it in a way that sees that this all goes somewhere. And just as order cannot last without, some sort of spectacular change, and, entropy is always fighting entropy, right? So chaos does not last long without some kind of new order emerging. And those who are internally ordered will find it much easier to navigate what is effectively a very brief period of time, where our very understanding of what the fuck we're doing here, what it is to be alive, what it is to be a human, what it is to have these, particular ways in which society is ordered, it's all getting overhauled. There's patience here. And patience in the face of chaos, I think, is an expression of true strength. We've got a job to do. We've all got a job to do. And we've all got a unique job for us. But we have a job nonetheless. We have a responsibility nonetheless. And I think this Capricorn season sees us kind of, lifting up the backpack and putting it on our back and going, well, that's cool. We're good, we're ready. Perhaps that's even it. It's just an acceptance of our own state of readiness. Can make us feel like we're very different to other people, but at the same time, I think there's more of us around than we'd thought. And this idea of readiness, this idea of being able to pursue truth even though we don't understand it, and this idea of being able to embrace our own treasure even though we possibly, I have been startled by the revelation of it in the last couple of months. It's like facing uncertainty with courage. That underneath it has a deep knowing. Because you're ready. We're ready. Interesting. 10 of Wands. Yeah. It's interesting because it's beautifully laid out here, because it's like it's responsibility. Is it being experienced as burden? No. Why? Because of the strength. Because of the idea that we go from strength to strength, and it starts here. The creative phase starts here. Actually, realistically, it probably started in Sagittarius season, right? But there's a different path now that you are watching. You are watching this video. You are walking a different path already compared to the masses. And that's cool, right? That's one of the reasons why you are a teacher, a leader, a guide. If this reading, this energies of the moment has resonated on any kind of level to you, then you're part of this movement. This movement of consciousness. I've been doing personal readings for 6-7 weeks now. And I think right across the board, every single person who's turned up has been in a personal year that has aligned with their ultimate goal. For those of you not familiar with numerology, your ultimate goal is somewhat functionally like a north node, right? Now what that says to me, because I love looking at patterns, right, is that everybody is somehow orienting towards what their soul is here to do in this lifetime. It doesn't matter where in the scale of personal years they are. It's like, oh no, personal years aligning with your destiny. That's never happened before. It feels like people are showing up and reporting for spiritual duty. all ready to start walking the path. Page of Wands again. And I don't feel any fear about this. This is the thing. It's an acceptance. It's readiness. It's like, okay. I love this. I love this for everyone. This is what we've been working towards for years. And it's here. It's time to do a little check on your resources. Make sure everything's where you need it to be internally. And recognize how different this path is now. Because it's based on value, it's based on your awareness of your own value, and that's huge. That's very different. I love this. I love it all together. Right, I'm going to go away now. Obviously, each of the signs' individual readings will follow here from. More like what you're used to. But I wanted to take the time to do this, and I will be doing this moving forwards, looking, at the energies of the season, because they've got their own rather static interpretations, and then they've got also what is going on in this period of time, and it's kind of trying to find that place where the two meet. So I shall leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.